As a kid growing up in the late 90s and the early 2000s, I remember seeing plenty of different anime targeted towards children. This was the first time anime really took off in the West, so of course, people tried to capitalize on that. The most popular of the bunch was of course Pokemon by far, spawning Pokemania, which is still very popular to this day. A lot of anime at the time tried to piggyback off the success of Pokemon, with the most popular one being Digimon. Now, to Digimon's credit, Digimon did do a pretty good job of differentiating itself a bit and remaining popular for quite a while many others just flopped or didn't pick up as much traction as Pokemon or Digimon. One of the many Pokemon-like franchises that I remember from this time was Monster Rancher. And that's right, Monster Rancher, not Monster Hunter, which a lot of people think is what I'm talking about when I say Monster Rancher. I remember seeing the show on TV as a kid, and I actually remember really enjoying it. I was at the time, and still am, a pretty huge Pokemon fan, and I also became a fan of other anime similar to Pokemon like Beyblade or Yu-Gi-Oh! Around the time, so it wasn't too surprising that little me would like a similar franchise in Monster Rancher. Now the main issue with Monster Rancher is it didn't seem to really get off the ground too much. Growing up, I only remember having one friend who even knew what the franchise was, while most kids are stuck to Pokemon or Digimon. Honestly, don't remember too much about the show besides the main character's monster Suezo, who was kind of like the Pikachu of the anime if you will, and this kangaroo guy, which I remember having toys of, which I must have gotten them as a gift or something because I can see it being pretty easy for an adult to mix these up for Pokemon toys. Anyway, I recently rewatched the first episode of the Monster Rancher anime, and although it was all over the place and didn't make that much sense, it actually wasn't that bad. It had the typical 90s anime feel you'd see with shows like Sailor Moon or Pokemon, and had a rather interesting story. The whole anime is based off this video game series called Monster Racnher by Tecmo, who also produced games like Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive. Crazy to see how a company that produced this also made this.
一緒にオーナーさん焼き芋美味しいですか?
So the story follows the main character, Genki, who of course wouldn't be a 90s anime protagonist if it wasn't for his cap, after he just won a major Monster Rancher tournament. He is told he will receive a special unreleased copy of a new Monster Rancher game in the mail, and then he just wakes up in school, which makes you think that he was having a dream. Now at first I thought this was supposed to be a dream, but nope, he goes home from school that day and the game's in the mail, which really confused me. Now maybe I just missed part of that or misinterpreted it, but I feel like that might have also have been a mistranslation because a lot of anime at the time kinda didn't translate properly, which sort of spawned the whole sub versus dub debate, which is a whole other video in itself. But anyway, when Genki pops the game in, he notices the game feels a little bit too real, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this one. He of course gets sucked into the game, and then adventures in the Monster Rancher world with a girl named Holly and her accompanying Suezo. And I hope I'm saying that right, Suezo, I'm honestly not sure. Now that's a general synopsis of the first episode, and I'm sure you can all see how the anime plays out just based on that synopsis. One of the more interesting things about this episode though is how Genki was summoned to the Monster Rancher world, and that was through a special disc that was intended to summon another monster to aid Holly in her Monster Rancher world. This is something that is prevalent in the physical games as well. You could actually use discs or CDs to summon monsters in your game by putting them in your PlayStation for the PlayStation Monster Rancher games. All you have to do is insert a readable disc to your PS1, and the game would create a monster based off of the disc's metadata. This sounds amazing, especially for something that came out in the late 90s, and they were even so detailed with this that if you were to insert a Christmas CD, you would get a Monster Rancher monster with the tag Santa. You could then combine these monsters with other monsters received through discs or monsters obtained through playing the game regularly, which was a nice touch. Now I unfortunately never got to play any of the PlayStation or any of the disc-based Monster Rancher games. I've only played the Game Boy ones, but I'm sure I would have had a ton of fun trying random discs to get these monsters. According to Metacritic.com, the Monster Rancher games actually have some pretty decent ratings within the mid-70s, which isn't that bad, but certainly not good enough to carry a franchise in the long term. The first game has the highest rating with an 86, which is actually pretty respectable, but it pretty much just goes down from there, with the 2006 release of Monster Rancher EVO for the PS2 only having a 58. In the anime, when Genki first loads up the Monster Rancher game, you see it's created by a company called Metco at the title screen, which is actually an anagram for the real company responsible for releasing Monster Rancher in the real world, Tecmo, just with the T and the M switched around. This was probably to avoid some sort of legal trouble, similar to how the Yu-Gi-Oh anime cards look slightly different than the physical anime cards, so that the show isn't considered a commercial. Tecmo is actually a rather interesting company as a whole, by the way. They merged with Koei in 2010 and now work on games licensed after them, such as Fire Emblem Warriors and One Piece Fire Wars. Honestly, I had no idea they worked on Fire Emblem Warriors, because I actually really liked that game. The Monster Rancher game I remember playing the most as a kid was Monster Rancher Battle Card for the Game Boy Color, which unfortunately did not have these functions for the disc, since of course the Game Boy didn't take discs. The Game Boy game that I played plays very different than the typical Monster Rancher games, as the typical games focus on you taking care of, training, and finding new monsters, kind of like a Tamagotchi, except a lot more expanded upon since it's not on some sort of LED screen, while the Game Boy game was more of an actual card game, which was actually really neat. Now, it wouldn't be a 90s kids anime if you didn't have some sort of a card game that spawned out of it, I guess. It does seem like a physical version of the card game was released in Japan, but I can't find too much information online about it, and there were some cards released in English as well, but these don't seem like actual trading cards, more so just collectible cards. I remember having these cards as a kid, which probably came with the toys that I had, which I unfortunately couldn't find for this video. I really wish I could have found them, show you pictures of it, but I guess I'll show you pictures of the toys I found on Google instead. I was able to find this image online, which is probably similar to what I had as a kid. And as you can see, these cards don't really seem like actual trading cards or playing cards, just more pictures. The game series continued on for quite a while actually, with the most recent release being in 2011, despite the anime finishing 10 years prior in 2001. The anime only had about a 2-year run, which is a bit unfortunate. Maybe we'll see some sort of revival or rehash of Monster Rancher like we've seen with similar franchises recently with Bakugan and Digimon over the past few years, but I don't think Monster Rancher has the same popularity as those two, unfortunately, so I don't think this series will come back. In terms of other Monster Rancher games, another card-based game was released for the PlayStation 2 as well as a few on the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS even. It's a shame that the non-PlayStation games had to abandon the whole creatures coming from random discs in your house gimmick, as this was a really cool idea for the time, and I feel like it was a really key feature to the game that unfortunately had to be omitted on the Nintendo consoles. There was even a mobile Monster Rancher game released for iOS in 2012, which unfortunately isn't on the US App Store anymore as I couldn't find it, so I'm going to assume it's not available anymore, which is quite unfortunate. It's possible it's still available in other regions, possibly Japan, but I doubt it. Now there is some game on the App Store called Monster Rancher Looper with Suezo as the icon, but it seems like this game was a random game made by some random fan that has pretty much nothing to do with Monster Rancher other than having a picture of Suezo in it. Overall, the Monster Rancher franchise was pretty different from Pokemon, but due to Pokemon's popularity at the time, pretty much anything that involves catching or training some sort of monsters automatically gets labeled as a Pokemon ripoff or Pokemon clone. Now this isn't always the case, of course, as we've seen with things like Digimon being able to differentiate itself pretty well, but Pokemon's popularity did have a big influence on these similar franchises around it. Pokemon helped pave the way for many more children's monster type anime, and without Pokemon, we probably wouldn't have a lot of the beloved franchises that we have today. I'm not sure if Pokemon was the first of its kind, but it definitely did it right. I personally really liked this franchise as a kid, and after rewatching the first episode of the anime in probably close to 20 years, it's made me want to play the games more and possibly even watch the rest of the anime. It's honestly not that bad, especially compared to most other animes that came out at the time. The games seem a ton of fun and they don't seem that expensive going on eBay prices, so maybe I'll pick one up and do a more dedicated video based on these specific Monster Rancher games. If you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments section down below, because I think that'll be a really fun video to make. So what do you guys think of Monster Rancher? Have you heard of it before, or do you remember playing the games or watching the anime? Let me know in the comment section down below, and of course, make sure you leave a like and subscribe as it really does help the channel a ton. This was my first bigger video of 2019, and I hope I started off right. I definitely want to spend this year focusing more on improving my content and expanding a bit more into things besides Pokemon, but still stay in the same general genre as Pokemon for the most part. Thank you guys so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, I will see you guys next time, and bye bye.